Folks After Dark. I hope everyone is doing all right. I can't sleep. I'm wide awake. On Mondays, all things being equal, Mondays are like treatment days. And afterwards, I tend to be tired, so oftentimes I don't do shows on Mondays. But I'm wide awake. I'm sorry, just checking the volume. So why not do the news, right? When real men can't sleep, real men do the news. What stirred me from just kind of sitting here mindlessly strolling was a story that came out that should be a bombshell. And it should be somewhat of a revelation in somewhat of a sea of revelations. Even though what it means is kind of hard to know, even though it does mean something. And I think this is somewhat significant, just like I thought the other story on the UFO issue was significant. Come to find out that the 3 videos that burst into the public of gun camera footage came from the Pentagon. Now, the Pentagon was squirrely about this when asked about it. Oh, we don't know about this, et cetera, et cetera. And people who were critics of the footage were essentially saying, hey, if the Pentagon can't claim this, then how do we know that this footage is real or this footage hasn't been manipulated, et cetera, et cetera. Not so much. Apparently, there is a Department of Defense form that was officially signed out, meaning the footage is not illegal in the least. The footage was illegally released. That adds a whole level of interest to this. Even though it's hard to know what that means. So let me think of it in these terms. In fact, let's start from the beginning on this and go through it pretty quickly, because there's a hastening of realizations of sorts from the standpoint of the government that I think we should acknowledge. So, New York Times Politico bombshell piece. The United States government had been studying UFOs. Oh my God. Now, people in the UFO community said, no shit, Sherlock. They already knew. Grant Cameron had known about the story release date long before that story was released. They already knew. Beyond that point, so other stories pick it up, meaning other news stations pick it up, meaning the story goes all over. Luis Elizondo, the guy who was working, quit his job and starts working for rock star Tom DeLonge. Tom DeLonge was instrumental in getting those tapes released. And kind of going to that point, tapes are being released into the public. Now, this was happening around the same time. There's somewhat of a quickening of the stuff, with notes that there will be more in the coming years and months, and not just more, in some cases, material, meaning craft material or something of material from what they're saying to be crash sites. Luis Elizondo starts doing interviews, and he starts saying some wild shit on those interviews. And he's essentially saying, look, I can't speak for the United States government, but because she asked them, the host for CNN, do you think that somebody is visiting us? I can't speak for the U.S. government, but based on my scientific analysis, yeah, I do. That's bombshell. Now, he doesn't speak for the U.S. government, but the guy's been doing scientific analysis, studying this stuff, and he's saying, look, we can't explain this from the standpoint of our current level of technology in regards to on this planet. It looks like there is something there. We just don't know what it is. As the videos come out, people from the videos start coming out and doing interviews themselves. Meaning in one of the ships, the Nimitz, there were 3 videos, Tic Tac, Gimbal, and another one called Go Fast. The one involving the Nimitz, the fighter pilot comes out and starts doing interviews, him and his partner. And they're talking about this, meaning you have the ship, you have the video, you have the pilots, two of them, all of them talking about it, all of them with the data to back this stuff up. Now, this is somebody is knocking on a door. Now, George Knapp was one of the reporters that's been doing this story, and that's been covering this story. He has behind the scenes contacts on the way this information is being released, meaning he knows things that he can't necessarily divulge. But George Knapp makes the point that there are multiple streams of people trying to push this information out. And the thought was that putting it out in this way beats down the door, meaning it gives a credibility to something that at one point had no credibility. Now, I think this is the oddest thing in the world, personally. You are a ball, a rock, hurling through space. And we know that life, even on Earth, evolves even in like volcanic pits and whatnot. So it is the most bizarre thing in the world to not look up and wonder what the fuck is up there. And whether or not our 100 years of science is the end all be all, which I severely doubt it is. But nevertheless, this was an odd thing to wonder about this stuff and to talk about this stuff. And so there was a certain factor about it. Well, that went away almost overnight. You had people hunting down UFO people, trying to get them for interviews on all these major networks, trying to figure out what they, what was the program about? Well, what were they talking about? And Harry Reid was the point person for it. Like, there was a legitimacy that was bestowed upon it almost immediately, just from everything that was taking place and the fact that the government was studying this stuff. My point is this. There seems to be a push to get this information out. And as Knapp said, the thought was, this beats down the door. And understand the logic of it. How do you deny this exists when these videos are coming from your own footage? And these pilots that are running $1 million weapon platforms are coming out saying, this is exactly what I saw. I was flying in the air, looking directly at it, line of sight. How do you, as a military, deny what these guys are saying? Are these guys insane? Are these videos fraudulent? What is up? The Navy and multiple congressmen starts getting briefed. They start getting briefed. And the guy, Chris Mellon, starts doing the briefings for these things. The Navy, last week, comes out and updates their protocols by which people can add UFO sightings. The Navy wants to get more information. The way Mellon describes, once this happened, they couldn't deny what they were seeing with their own eyes, especially after they were consulted and given a briefing on this stuff. In which case they said, we need to know more. We want to know more. We want to know more. Of course they want to know more. They're the military. And if something is invading their airspace, and not just invading their airspace, doing so in a way that they can't quite grasp, they can't quite understand. The rub of it is, the way Luis Elizondo explains, well, we know how they do what they do. We've been analyzing this. We've been studying this. Keep in mind, they've been studying this stuff for years. The budget of it is comically small, but you can imagine at this point, that budget is probably going to expand. You have Trump talking about Space Force. You have the Navy saying we need to update our protocols for UFOs because we need to get more information on this particular subject. And now you have it release that it wasn't somebody that smuggled those videos out, that it was the Pentagon itself that released the videos. What does it mean? What does it mean? What does it mean? I don't know what it means. Is the Pentagon trying to get a bigger budget? My biggest fear, and I've made it, I've said it once before, that my fear of this is that it gets turned into, it's easy to put into a fear campaign. There's something invading our skies. There's something invading our skies. The $1 trillion that we're spending on the military is not enough. That needs to go to more. And we need to get a world concerted effort doing this. This kind of governing body like NATO. We need another NATO. I guess my point is this has a tendency, or this has a potential to be extraordinarily, fear-inducing and used for bad political ends, which is my cynicism on this. I have to be honest. I was one of those people who were standing outside at the top of the building with the sign, "Welcome, Space Brother." I am the person that Valerian, on the first scene where Valerian starts, and all of these creatures are coming in and they're shaking hands with all of these aliens and everything else, I am the one that gets teary-eyed watching that. And yet, I also, from covering politics, know that politicians have ends, in part for the reason that they do things. And I don't know why this subject would be any different. That's sad to say, but I do think it's true. So, There it is. Yeah, sad to say it, but I do think it's true. But nevertheless, I'm putting the article at the bottom so you guys can see for yourself. But I thought this was fascinating. Stephanie Chateau, testing to see if you can super chat. Been having issues. Yes, Stephanie, you can absolutely super chat. You can absolutely super chat. Yeah, man. This is So let's go into a few things. The U.S. military has always wanted the capability of space. I mean, Reagan's Star Wars program was essentially that effort or that attempt to try to get that capability to weaponize space. Imagine weapons platforms where float across the planet that has some kind of laser associated with it that rains down hell on planet Earth, or just drops a munition that doesn't have any bombs or anything else attached to it, but just the speed of impact itself can flatten a particular area like a nuclear bomb. I mean, I guess my point is this. This is, to some degree, confirmation. Like, this is not necessarily, this is not disclosure. Like, this is not Trump coming out with an alien saying, here's the ship and kicking the tires. But this is, to some degree, confirmation. The Pentagon has released something into the public in order to legitimize the issue. The Pentagon then denied having released that information to the public to legitimize the issue. And it was squarely about where the information came from. Nevertheless, the issue was legitimized overnight. How could it not be? These guys have videotapes and the pilots are out there talking. It's like, so what's the end? What's the end? Is it, we want this issue to get more publicity, we want this issue to be taken seriously because something is invading our skies, so we need to, at the very least, figure out what it is and how it's doing it and how it's, the technology, that type of thing? Or is it more sinister? And I don't mean, that word sounds too epic, but to some degree appropriate, right? I mean, we're talking about magnificent level of technology that's capable. For example, Vladimir Putin comes out with a hypersonic plane that says they can evade all jets. Now, I would imagine that's just probably a tweak on our current level of technical understanding. What does that look like 1,000 times that point? If technology had some kind of incremental scale, what does it look like 100 times or 10 times that? Even a small tweak in technology. During World War II, when the U.S. planes, Nazis had created jets during World War II. Hitler, for whatever reason, didn't believe in jets, so Hitler didn't invest a huge amount of resources in the jets. But when the jets were out there, they obliterated whatever they were up against because they were speeding past. There's camera footage that's showing a jet speeding past, and the pilots in the U.S. planes are like, what the fuck is that? Couldn't touch it. It's literally going through their ranks. That's not a significant advance in technology. That's kind of what I'm getting at. And these guys are studying this in order to figure out how this stuff works. At this point, to some degree, they understand, I guess, the basics of it, but it's hard to know how far that goes. But they are angling for money, of course, to go further into that. So, I just wanted to give a heads up on what's taking place here. Yeah. All right, I'm not going to keep this one long because this one wasn't meant to be long. I just wanted to give a heads up. I just thought it was an awesome story. The Pentagon released those videos. What does that mean? Honestly, what does that mean? Give me a heads up below. Is that the Pentagon trying to legitimize an issue or elements of it? And I hate when people do that, so I'm not going to do it. There's never just the thing, right? There's always elements of a thing. So you have competing things. Even in one system, you would have competing interests. So whatever the faction of the Pentagon that's releasing it, what's the point of them releasing it? Is it to legitimize the issue and get funding, I guess, for further research? Are their aims positive? Are their aims negative? I have a friend of mine that says, dude, I know these people are monsters. So, I don't know. I don't know. All right, I'm going to end this. If you guys enjoy the content, you find yourself coming back here often, please consider supporting this content through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks, everyone. I'll see you in a few. I have a few more stories, unfortunately. Thanks all.